Alright class, today we're going to finish up 12.1, which were notes about how to convert between polar and rectangular. Please pause and just write these down again. These were from yesterday's notes. These are the formulas you will need to go back and forth. Yesterday we went from polar to rectangular. Today we're going to do the opposite, and then we are also going to turn rectangular equations into polar and vice versa. So write those down. For this note sheet, I'm actually not doing this one. I'm going to just kind of do one of each of these. So the first one says, I have an x of 5 and a y of negative 5. Now I like to draw where that is. If x is 5 and y is negative 5, that's right here. To get r, we can use r squared equals 5 squared plus negative 5 squared. Because it's Pythagorean theorem, and then this is theta in there, which is 50. Square root of 50 is 5 root 2. So r is equal to 5 root 2. Okay. Now we need to find theta. To do that, you have to just do the tangent inverse of y over x, which is just the tangent inverse of negative 1. Now, you guys, for this unit, we are allowed to use the calculator, so you could type this in, and when you do that, you would get negative 45 degrees, or negative pi over 4. So this is negative pi over 4. However, notice that I want r to be greater than or equal to 0, and theta to be greater or between 0 and 2 pi. So instead of telling me that theta equals negative pi over 4, you have to add 2 pi to go around it. And so we end up with the point that r is 5 root 2, and theta, instead of saying that as negative pi over 4, you could say it's 7 pi over 4. And then we're done. Okay, so the only thing that's a little tough is the angle. Alright, let's draw where this one is. This is down in quadrant 3 somewhere. So r squared is equal to the one thing squared, 4 root 3 squared, plus negative 4 squared. Remember, when you square this, you get a 16 and a 3. So you get 48 plus 16. So you get r is equal to 8. Okay. So we have r. Now we need to define the angle. So the tangent inverse of y over x, that's equal to the tangent inverse of 1 over root 3. Well, that happens at 30 degrees. And again, you can use your calculator. So that's pi over 6. However, then the calculator will give you that. But pi over 6 is in this quadrant. So we need to get over here. It's a pi over 6 after pi. So we have to add 180, or add 1 pi. So if you do that, you end up with 7 pi over 6. So our final answer is 8, 7 pi over 6, since it's in quadrant 3. So that's how you do that. So those are basically finding the points in polar from rectangular. The hardest part is the angle, easiest part is the radius, because it's just Pythagorean theorem. Just to revisit, to convert from rectangular to polar, we know that x is equal to r cosine theta and y is equal to r sine theta. So if I'm looking down here, that says x equals 6. Well, instead of x, I'm going to write r cosine theta equals 6. That is now an equation in polar form. It's in polar form if you get rid of the x's and the y's. Now this one, you can put in this here and this here, factor, cancel, all that. But if you notice, we also have a formula for this. If you remember, x squared plus y squared is r squared. So you could just say that that turns into an r squared equals 4. Here we don't have anything like that, so instead I'm going to write r cosine theta for my x and a r sine theta for my y. And that's that. Those are in polar form. There are no x's and y's left in the equation. Okay. Now to go from polar to rectangular, we need r squared, and there's two ways to get r squared. You can square both sides, or you can multiply both sides by r. And you do that when you have a sine or cosine by itself, because you want then r cosine theta or r sine theta. So let's see how that works down here. Again, pause if you didn't finish writing. Alright, I'm going to move down now. This says r equals 5. So I could either square both sides or multiply by r. If I multiply by r, I get my r squared here, but I have just an r over there, which defeats the whole purpose. So instead, I'm going to square both sides. So I get r squared equals 25. And then to turn that into rectangular, I know r squared equals x squared plus y squared. And then I'm done. And you guys should note this equation. This is a circle centered at 0 with a radius of 5. So that'll come into play on the next video when we're graphing r equals 5. Here, you can either square both sides or multiply by r. In this case, multiplying by r is the better choice, because then you're going to get an r with the cosine of theta. So we get r squared equals 3r cosine theta. We have a sub in for that, and we have a substitution for this. This becomes x squared plus y squared over here, and this becomes just 3x. That's it. That is how you go back to rectangular from polar. You want r squareds, and they're either multiply by r or square both sides. Try one or the other, but you should see which one works better for you. Alright, well that's it for today. I will see you next time.